Trad wives are apparently out, and trad sons are in, also known as hub son. And if you're like, Reagan, what are we talking about? You know, I felt the same thing when I saw this last night, and so I thought it is time that you all see this as well so that we can have this conversation. Now, a trad son is an adult son who lives at home and takes on the persona of a trad wife, so cooks, cleans, does all of the house chores, while the mother pays the bills and works and takes care of that side of things. Now, to preface, before we get even further into this is not about young men who are living at home to save money. This is not about young men who maybe lived on their own, came home for a bit to like get their lives back together and then are going back out into the world. That's not what this is. And I want to make that distinction very clear because that is not who I'm criticizing in this. This is specifically men who are now calling themselves trad sons and are proudly just living the trad wife persona at home with their mom. I'm not quite sure where their dads are at in this particular scenarios, but this is also new to me, so perhaps more will come from this as this continues to be a conversation. But I first saw it in the New York Post, and this was the article. It said, "This has been my dream job since I was a little kid," one 34-year-old told the Post. "My mom is at work right now, she covers everything, and I stay home." I just love the title. Stay-at-home hub sons are the trad wives of 2025. And their moms couldn't be more thrilled. Oh gosh, okay, let's just read the article. I think that's what I'm gonna do today. I'm just gonna read through this article because there's so many things here to kind of unpack. Okay, so Luke Parkhurst is living the dream. At nearly 34 years old, not an early 20s guy, 34, he's doing it jobless and rent-free at his mother's house, a sweet setup that mom, Patty, loves. I bet she loves it. I bet she does. But the millennials' spongy life on Easy Street doesn't come at a totally free ride. Instead, it comes with the homemaking duties of a stay-at-home wife. Rather than loafing about all day, eating bonbons and scrolling through social media while Patty, a flight attendant, works, Luke's taking care of business around the abode. I would hope. Like, good. At least he's doing chores. "I'm a stay-at-home son," Luke from Las Vegas proudly told the Post. "I do the grocery shopping, cook steak for dinner, clean the pool, fix things around the house." It's really the photos from this that we were joking looked sort of AI, like they looked like a meme. They're not, they're legit. And it's just the son doing the chores while the mom just chills, which again, like this is an endearing photo if we're talking about like the teens or the early 20s. But this again, this is another layer. He's 34, almost 35 years old. His is an unpaid, unproblematic position that's rising in popularity among the Gen Z and Gen Y2K guys called trad son by some or hub son by others, as Patty calls Luke. Okay, so Patty is calling, that's an issue for a whole other reason. Parents, mothers, don't call your son a hub son. Don't do that. Where's your husband? Where are they? Clearly, he's not in the picture here, unfortunately, it seems, because as a husband, if my wife was calling my son a hubson, that just seems incestuous. Patty, okay. Why I wanted to talk about this was because they wanted to talk about it. They went to the New York Post, said, hey, this is our lifestyle, like, put it on blast, like, put it out there. So that's what I'm doing as well, because they connect it to the trad wife phenomenon. It's a cushy gig similar to that of traditional housewives, or trad wives. They're the growing number of married gals, including famous folks like Hannah Nealman of Ballerina Farm, who's controversially, which is funny, it's not controversial, forgone the 9-to-5 daily grind to instead raise their families, handcraft home-cooked meals, and keep immaculate abodes. Why do I keep saying abodes? Just say homes, houses. Who says abode?
Welcome to our humble abode.
This is not the same playing field, okay? Not at all. A trad wife is doing duties that are traditional for a wife in general. It is just the natural keeping of a home. Having your son do the jobs of either the wife or the husband is not the norm. So it's not the same playing field here at all. Trad sons, like Luke, a former door-to-door solar salesman who ditched the $170,000 vocation and moved back in with Patty's place this summer, aren't just leeching off of mommy and daddy, sans responsibility. They're earning their keep, doing housework and running errands in order to maintain their kept status. It's a Cinderella story in reverse. It's not. Again, even the comparison to Cinderella seems incorrect. What's wild there is that he did actually go have a career. Then he wasn't happy with that career, and so he just moved back in with his parents, which again, is fine if it's for a season, but he's saying that this is like his new job. So it's not this, temporary fix. It's like, no, this is my new thing. I'm identifying as a trad son. I'm going to do this instead. That is where I have questions both for the parents in this situation and parents in this situation at large, and also the children. Having a $170,000 job, that's wild. $170,000 a year job he had a successful career. Okay, this has been my dream job since I was a little kid. Okay, so the vocation, the one making him six figures, was not the dream job, but this was, claiming that this role was his go-to response to those "when I grow up, I want to be" homework assignments. Wow. Interesting. Okay, here's another picture of him. See, these just feel like memes. I mean, I'm glad he's making his mom steak, because that's, like, at the very least, you should be making, like, some top-tier dishes, because you're chilling. You don't got kids to raise. That's the other part about this. Trad wives, typically also, there are oftentimes children into the mix, so they are doing household chores and taking care of the kids and also being at home. Bro's just chilling. It's nice work if you can get it. Okay. Oh my gosh. This just feels so unnatural, not the order of things. Now, speaking of something that is natural though, let's talk about balance of nature. Because frankly, even when we are trying our best, most of us are not getting enough variety of fruits and vegetables and fiber into our diets. In fact, over 90% of Americans don't meet the recommended fiber intake, which is a huge percentage of Americans. Now that is where balance of nature comes in, because their fruit supplements are packed with mango, pineapple, wild blueberries, and more, and they taste amazing mixed into yogurt and smoothies. They also have a veggie supplement that has powerhouse ingredients like kale, spinach, broccoli, and mushrooms. They also have the fiber and spice blend, and that combines 12 spices with 4 whole fibers. Now, unfortunately or fortunately, I don't have a trad son at home cooking my meals every single day, so sometimes my diet is all over the place, sometimes we're not getting the good nutrients into our body, but thanks to Balance of Nature, I can confirm that I still am, even when my meals are not as wonderful as the steak that this kid apparently makes for his mom every night. So if you guys are like me and you need some Balance of Nature in your life, you can go to balanceofnature.com and use promo code Conrad for 35% off your first order as a preferred customer, plus you get a free bottle of fiber and spice. That's balanceofnature.com, promo code Conrad today. Okay, back to the trad son. And unemployed guys worldwide, including high-profile stay-at-home son Brendan. There's more of these. See, this is not just a one-off. So they just called out another guy who was also, again, identifying as a trad son. And this guy apparently identified as this on air, on Jeopardy. So here is him on Jeopardy saying this.
Brendan Liao is with us from Vancouver. He's a recent graduate, and therefore I assume that's why you're also a stay-at-home son.
That is correct.
Professional stay-at-home son.
Yep.
Even right here, I'm going to flag that difference. The other guy we're talking about is 34, had a vocation, was out in the world, succeeding, doing his thing, and now he's a trad son. This guy's fresh out of college, so I think that's different. But we'll listen to what he says anyways.
Pretty good gig if you can get it.
It's a pretty good gig, but I'm worried I'm going to be called a loiterer at some point.
Well, if you're there 10 years later and you're still loitering, perhaps.
Until then, you've been filling your time with a club. You're in a kind of a version of the Joy Luck Club.
Yeah, I play with 3 retired aunts, and we play gin rummy, and it's with tiles, and it's a version of rummy called Penang rummy. And we get together a couple times a month, and it's grueling business. It's 9 to 9 with a dinner break. So I like to describe it as a Joy Luck Club in the front, Fight Club in the back.
A 12-hour day playing gin rummy with older aunts? That is quite the gig. It's not beneficial to society at large. And again, as a recent college grad, he seems like he's very smart. Obviously, he was on Jeopardy. I'm assuming he's going to go on to then use his brain out in the world to better society. At least I would hope so. But the trad son is like a thing that people are saying. Across the country, approximately 1 in 3 adults ranging in age from 18 to 34 now live with their mothers and fathers per recent U.S. Census Bureau data. There was different times throughout my college, early adulthood where I would kind of jump back home for a couple months and take back off somewhere else. So that stat doesn't inherently surprise me or fully concern me, but it's more the attitude of staying there long term and being cool with that, to the point of then finding a name for it, calling it a trad son, and then being like, yeah, my job is just to chill here, take care of my mom, cook. It's nice, but as a parent, you would think that you want them to leave the nest. You want them to give them a little eventually and have them flying out into the world and spreading their wings.
To spread his wings.
Succeeding, all of that, which this is inherently not doing. Because from a lot of these mothers, they're supporting it. They're loving it. They're like, oh, my baby is back. They're not quite supposed to be. Like, take care of your parents one day when they're elderly and they need you. This is different, though. This is different. Especially young men. Like, now it's time for them to go lead and succeed and try and then fail and then try again and fail again. I mean, I'm not denying that it's a hard climate right now. It's expensive. Rent is crazy high. Like, all of those things are very real. For some people, it's very hard to find jobs in this market. Like, I understand all of that. But again, it's still having that desire to seek those things that is the difference here between the stay-at-home trad son that is proud to be a trad son, wants to stay there for who knows how long, versus someone who is trying to get on their feet before heading out back into the world. Okay, here's a therapist chiming into this. Catherine Smerling, an Upper East Side family therapist, says the trad son trend isn't a consequence of gentle parenting. It sort of feels like it is. An ultra-modern yet controversial child-rearing strategy that promotes appeasing kids over showing them tough love, which I think is also what certain versions of gentle parenting also did. The psychologist and author instead believes the mooching off of mom and dad movement is an effect of our troubled society plagued by social discord, a precarious job market, inflation, and an ongoing housing crisis. There's a lot of unrest in men in these 20s and 30s today. There's a lot of insecurity and instability. Most young men haven't truly found themselves yet. For some, it's comforting to be at home. They feel safe and secure with their parents in a very conflicted world. And to that, of course, there's an element of the nest is safe and comforting. It is for all of us, both men and women, or at least I hope it would be for people. But that also doesn't mean that residing there forever is a good thing. Again, there's sort of different conversations even happening within this article because I think they're trying to understand, well, what is a trad son and what is different than someone just living at home? But the trad son is very specific. And specifically, I think the trad son thing could very well be a consequence of the gentle parenting. It tracks with the ages too. I mean, it all kind of makes sense. Okay, I just want to know, like, does this guy, does he want a family of his own one day? Because this is setting him up for success in his mom's home long term. But like, what about his own? The doc warns that the trad son shtick should only be temporary. Of course. That I think we all agree, which is why this guy is not saying that he's temporary. These photos, I love. Patty's like, oh, why would Patty ever want anything else? She's loving this. It's been a relief to have someone to do the grocery shopping and take out the garbage, Patty said. She's a mother of 4, including a daughter who became a multi-millionaire in her 20s, one son who manages several top-notch restaurants, and another who works as a pilot. The article is like kind of cruel. I don't understand this. And then they're like, and then there's Luke. Poor Luke. Okay, he's my baby. Patty, we know. Okay. I call him my Hubson. That's so no, Patty. Okay, so Luke is quoted here talking about his life prior to being a trad son. He said, I was doing great financially, but none of it was feeding my soul. That's okay. You find a different job. Sometimes you gotta do the soul-sucking job for a little bit to get on your feet, to get somewhere else also. Unfortunately, I feel like that's how we in Gen Z operate. That is a common thing. But that sentence though goes on and said Luke, who's not keen on abandoning the trad son lifestyle anytime soon. That's key. Is this long-term or is this short-term? Luke is making it sound long-term. And Patty's probably like, oh yes, stay here forever. Why would she not? Of course I don't want to go back to the workforce, Luke said. Okay, that attitude though is like, most people would rather be at home chilling than working, but that's not the reality of the world that we live in. Frankly, I always go back to this. That's not the reality of any period of time ever for the average person. Like, from the dawn of time, people were just working to get food or water for the day's drink and meal. I mean, that's how important work was. And then it obviously became work to gain money, to then be able to trade and buy and sell. But again, this idea of never having to work or not wanting to, but that's also part of like human beings. It's part of our human nature. I mean, it's also biblical. Like you have to work. You have to use your hands. You have to build and do good for your community in a bunch of different ways. Yes, but that's still part of human nature. So to say I don't like working. It's hard. Of course it's hard. But we can't be teaching a generation that, oh yes, when things are hard, just abandon them. When they're hard, just quit. That's not a healthy attitude to have. Especially when technically we're living in a time in history where things are good at large in this country. We are safe. We're not desperately making sure that we're going to survive the next day because of war and famine. Like that is no longer an issue for us here in the States, and that is a blessing. We're also not having to be hunter and gatherers to find our next meal. Like we just open our fridge. So in a lot of ways, we are blessed. And so while yes, I acknowledge that there's lots and lots of hardships going on in this country, at large, we are in a good place. And so this attitude of just like, I don't want to go back to the workforce, even though I had this really high paying job and I had this good life because it was hard. Like it's just not a good thing to feed long term. Okay, my last question here with the trad son lifestyle is what about the women? Are they interested in women? Do they want to have a wife? If so, are they dating? If so, how are they dating? Are they identifying as trad sons to the potential prospects? That's my question. Do they answer that? All right, let's see. He did acknowledge, however, that he has already identified one very good reason not to get too comfortable at home. Okay. All right, my faith in humanity is rising again. Let's see. If I ever want to be in a relationship, I know I can't tell a woman, by the way, I have a roommate and it's my mom. Okay, nor should you call yourself your hubson. Or let your mother say in front of your date, this is my hubson. If I was his son, at least I would have shut down that name immediately, but the fact that he hasn't is concerning. This gives me hope. Maybe it won't be a forever thing. He's just got to find the right woman. But again, a lot of women are not going to be receptive to this or this attitude again at large. If the mother wants the best for her son here, it would be like, okay, son, try the world again. Flap your wings again. Okay, there's another guy. Abdullah Abbasi, a 24-year-old stay-at-home son from Chicago, isn't concerned about how his living situation might ultimately impact his love life. This is another trad son who has been doing this since the pandemic. So much so, though, that he started a sportswear line in his free time, which I saw that, I'm like, great. Like, you're living at home, you're building business, that's awesome. But then I saw that the sportswear line is called Stay-at-Home Sons, and it's merch that literally says, all right. Featuring the cheeky tagline, doing nothing is hard. Oh my gosh. Again, I hope that this is all just sarcasm. There's part of me that's like, it's just a joke, but it's not just a joke. Okay, this line from the article seems to be the thing that I really want to focus on. He said, I don't have to worry about paying bills, doing grunt work, or trying to afford housing. I can just focus on what makes me happy. And again, I come back to this idea for all of us, from the beginning of adulthood, frankly, and again, for adults from the beginning of time, we couldn't just focus on, well, what makes us happy? I'm gonna just do what, it's not that easy. Sure, I wish it was that easy, that'd be fun, but it's not. Nor is it fulfilling and purposeful to just be like, I'm just gonna do whatever makes me happy and never think about anything else or anyone else or any, I mean, there is so much to learn from having responsibility. And frankly, to that idea, this article does end with this guy acknowledging that this lifestyle is a luxury. It absolutely is, and is it a good one? Because it is a good thing, again, in so many ways, to be hardworking. It seemed like a lot of the comments are in agreement. Some people are in the comments saying, hey, I've lived at home for a period of time, but that was just a temporary arrangement. Something happened in my family, I was down on my luck, that kind of thing. And a lot of other people are pointing to things like this. She pampered her child to the point that he can't function in the real world. She probably didn't want to be alone, so she figured he was the weak link. She's done him a great disservice. Another parenting comment, which again I think is an important part here. The main job of parenting is to teach your child to be a moral, self-sufficient person who benefits their community, in my opinion. The natural order is for your child to outlive you. Now, as for this whole conversation, I am all for young men finding out who they want to be. Sometimes that's hard. Sometimes you have to quit a job, start a new job. Of course, that is all part of the process. But then there is this different level. And regarding the trad son specifically, parents should not be enabling this behavior at 35 years old. And giving them an easy out when life gets hard, because it does for all of us. Because overall, being a trad son long-term is not sustainable, nor is it good for society as a whole. Hopefully this is just a fading fad and not some new 2025 trend. Thank you so much for watching this episode of The Comment Section. For more content like this, make sure to like this video as well as subscribe to this channel. And for other content, you can follow me on X and my personal Instagram, as well as our comment section Instagram. I'll see you guys in the comments.